Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I'm the Gnarly Gnome. This is Cincy Brewcast. It's the voice of Cincy Craft. We're back. A couple weeks off. You should know at this point that sometimes things just aren't going to always work every week. I blame my family. My children are at fault of everything in my life that goes wrong. But we're back, and this is a good one. I've been trying to sit down and do a show here for a year-ish now at this point. There's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of chatter online, I think, about this place always, and for lots of different reasons that I want to try to get into today. And I want to try to figure out why people do feel the way they do about a place like this. We're at Listermann Brewing Company. If you guys have not been paying attention for the last year plus, there's new ownership. Dan Listermann and his wife, they retired, and I think he's now building some kind of fort on a river. It shouldn't be surprising to anybody that knows Dan. And you guys came in and are now carrying the flag of Listermann. Let's start. Introduce yourselves and kind of what your role is here, and we'll start going from there.
Go ahead, Peyton.
Yeah. So Peyton Smith, I'm the head brewer here at Listermann Brewing Company. I've had the head brewer position for about 4 months now, something like that. Started in last August as a lead brewer. So I'm in charge of all the wort production, brewery production, drafts, cans, recipe development, all that kind of stuff.
Excellent.
And I'm Terry Ibsen. I'm the owner of Listermann Brewing Company. We purchased the business from Dan and Sue in February of 2023. It was a business that was listed for sale. We actually had a family friend that recommended, because we were going to, we had a project of our own up north that didn't come to fruition. And this was an opportunity that we really felt blessed to be offered. So.
Yeah, it's a heck of a there's a lot to unpack with it. I mean, coming into any brewery that already has some kind of story and some kind of soul to it already is difficult. Coming into one like Listermann, where, I mean, not only number one, the name is Dan's on the wall still. He's a big part of kind of what this was and how this became what it is. To come into that is also extremely difficult, probably more so than anything else. And let's drink a beer before we get into this. It's my favorite part about the show is drinking a beer. You guys were very gracious to grab me straight out of a Bright Tank. This is German Pilsner.
Yes, this is all for one. It's kind of changed over the years. It's fluctuated in ABV and grain bill, but this year I kind of wanted to make it more of a German Pilsner. So it's 5%. It's about 32 IBUs ish. Really clean malt profile, and then it's hopped with Hallertau Mittelfrüh, Tettnanger, and Herzbrucker.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's citrusy, floral, or a little herbal.
Oh yeah, that's right in my wheelhouse. Yeah, good kind of there is kind of a bright citrusy thing that I don't know that I was necessarily expecting.
Yeah.
But it's good. It's balanced out by kind of an earthy kind of.
Yeah. The majority of the hop profile in there is Herzbrucker, and Herzbrucker is one of my favorites for especially pale lagers. It kind of has like this nuanced fruit character to it, but it's still very much a German.
Is that one of the newer
variety.
German hops?
It's newer. It's still a noble hop.
Right.
But it definitely has a little bit, kind of like 1 foot in the past, 1 foot kind of in the future. It's a really nice hop for
I don't know a lot about it. I obviously have heard the name before, but that's a great beer. That's delicious.
Yeah.
Really well done. All right. Let's go to this story here. When you come into a place like Listermann, number one, how do you make that decision from, because you had been talking about starting your own project for 10 years. So there was probably lots of ideas at that point of what this was going to look like, what it was going to feel like, what it was going to be. Then to come into something where a lot of those ideas can't really be because you have expectations of what this is supposed to already exist as. How do you kind of balance those out? How do you find places where you can incorporate some of those things that you did want to have in your own place? Just start there.
Yeah. Okay. So day one, right, and the thought, and still is currently today, that we didn't want to change the brand. We didn't want to change what Listermann stood for. We didn't want to change the recipes, the beers. There's a lot of equity in all of that, so
Sure.
you don't mess with something that doesn't need to be fixed. What we did want to do, though, was to for example, the kitchen, the space, just make it a little, kind of update it to make it a little more comfortable and friendly. And then, with regards to the kitchen, Tickle Pickle was here.
That's where I'm trying to remember time frame in my head of how that was.
They did not renew their lease last September.
Okay.
And so Ray left on really good terms. It was just, he was opening another brick and mortar, and it was just too much for him,
Sure.
especially with staffing, right? We struggled. And then
Struggled past tense. You struggled with staffing in a kitchen.
Well, everybody struggles with staffing in a
That
kitchen.
is the problem of kitchens.
It is. And I'm becoming a lot more experienced in staffing in kitchens.
We'll talk about that too.
But we wanted to take control of the entire experience, right, for the customer. So having hours aligned with the tap room. I can't tell you how many times people come in, on a Friday night, Ray was closed at 7 or closed altogether. And, they leave unhappy because they, generally want food now. Gone are the days when you go to a tap room and they don't offer some type of food, right?
Right.
And so one of the other things, the brewery we were planning up north was more of a destination brewery. It was in a rural community, underserved, but basically was going to be a neighborhood brewery, which is the beauty of Listermann. It's a neighborhood brewery. And so those things, and I think that is even more true in Cincinnati than it ever was before, because people don't necessarily want to drive somewhere.
Sure.
There's a brewery on basically every place, like Starbucks, right?
It's also so strange. Like, there are some places in Listermann, I think, is one of those spots where if somebody is coming into Cincinnati, they're reaching out to friends or reaching out online or whatever and say, all right, where do I need to go? And Listermann is always one of those spots, for lots of different reasons. But so there's a lot of people that do come through here that are coming here as a destination. So like, it's this weird mix kind of between the two, which I think is part of the difficulty of Listermann, is that you can't ever really nail down what Listermann is, because yes, it is a neighborhood spot. It's sitting right here. It's a college brewery. There's a huge college campus just right around the corner, not even right across the street now. And at the same time, it's in a neighborhood that there's lots of people that just kind of walk over here, and this is their neighborhood bar. And then it's also a destination. Like, it's hard to kind of find those different personalities and find a way to mesh them all together and keep all those people happy.
Well, they all have, I would say, it's easy because they generally have a common love of craft beer.
Well, hopefully.
And so that's something that,
hopefully,
I would say that, well, most people, right? But we have other
and that's
options for those folks. But, I pride myself on pretty much being able to convert just about any non-beer drinker. We have something on draft always that they will drink. And it's rewarding for me because, I think that there's a stigma sometimes if you haven't ever had the opportunity to try craft beer, that, especially if you've never drank beer in the past. And I think that, having the talent that we have and the recipes, it's very rewarding to be able to serve somebody something that they really enjoy without, forcing it.
Well, I miss that experience at a lot of places. That was, again, kind of, we were talking before we started the show about kind of the joy of going to places before kind of craft beer exploded the way it has. And one of those things that I used to love, and when I see it happen, I still do, is when you're sitting at a bar and somebody walks in and they're with a group or whatever, and they kind of walk up and they got that look on their face and like, I'm out of my element here. I don't really drink beer, or all I drink is Bud Light, or hey, I like summer shandy or whatever it is, and it's like, okay, Like, that's fine. We'll figure something out here. Try this, try this. What do you like about that? What do you not like about it? And then you find something that they like, oh, I like this. I'll take this. And they go and they get back with their group and they sit down and they're happy.
Mm-hmm.
That's gotten lost now. Like, I feel like you walk into so many places and it's like, all I drink is, I like White Claw. And like, well, that's fine. We got that. Here you go. It's like, and then they go and they grab that and they go sit down. And it misses that whole kind of growth side of drinking. And I'm glad that there are still places that embrace it and understand it.
Yeah, that was the whole concept right behind flights, right? And we encourage our bartenders to offer a flight, right? That gives them the perfect opportunity to, especially if they're traveling, to try the breadth of, various styles and get to find their favorite.
What are some of the things when you guys came in to Listermann? What are some of the things that maybe caught you off guard that you were like, oh, this is not what we were expecting from something like this?
Equipment repairs.
Yeah.
We have some vintage equipment.
There's some interesting things back there.
Positive spin on it, vintage.
Yeah, that really
it's
was
a charm.
Yeah.
Yeah, the first 3 months, it was like I didn't walk in here and Matthew wasn't like, oh, X is broke or
Right.
the canner's down again or, so yeah, I wasn't really expecting the breadth, but, we've got it to a point now where
Knock on wood. Knock on wood.
knock on wood.
Everybody.
it's, things, are in a good place and we have a good team, that's doing the work to maintain it and make sure that, we're up and running on a regular basis.
Again, part of the personality of this place for so long was kind of this cobbled together kind of, again, anybody that knows Dan and the personality that he kind of put into this, everybody was always fixing something and, rigging something together and making it work.
Yep.
And that's great, except it's not.
Right.
It's not an easy way for anybody else to come into it and do things.
I think it's a great way to learn as a brewer,
Sure.
Especially if it's a lot of hard work, but learning on a system like this that is so manual where you need to turn every valve, you need to move every hose to send the beer or the wort to any direction that you want.
Oh, yeah.
So it's kind of nice in that sense that you can get really creative with how you want to set things up. But long, hot days. But yeah, I think it makes for a lot of creativity back there.
Right. Let's I want to talk about kind of the food side of things, but before we do that, I want to talk about kind of your story, how you got here. How did you start brewing? When did you start brewing? Was it start homebrew side? Did you?
Yeah. So, I'm from Cincinnati. My brother is at Sonder Brewing Company, Austin Smith.
Oh yeah.
Listening.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Now.
We get it a lot. So yeah, I grew up in Mainville, Ohio. We started homebrewing with my dad in our garage in my senior year of high school. I guess I don't need to get too into details, but so started homebrewing and towards the end of high school, I
had to be hard, like brewing beer and not being able to drink it.
Yeah, funny how that works. Yeah, I wasn't able to drink
try any of it.
So yeah, I started out homebrewing with my dad and my brother. I quickly became obsessed. Both my brother and I
Can I interrupt
did.
for 1 second? I have a really good story. I won't say what the homebrew shop was in Cincinnati that we were going to at a very young age, but we would go to the homebrew shop, and every time we would check out the proprietor there, big jolly kind of guy, sometimes would break into German randomly.
Yeah.
He would tell us, "Now, boys, don't you ferment this."
That sounds. Yeah, I think I might know who you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, we would come here all the time for our homebrewing equipment stuff too. That's funny, but yeah, every homebrewer in Cincinnati. I mean, this is the homebrew shop, Listermann.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started out homebrewing. Quickly became obsessed. Kind of in college, I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. Still homebrewing. Right out of college, I got a job in sales and beverage sales for a couple different distributors. Kind of hoping to get my foot into the brewery side of things through sales side. Didn't really pan out. Wasn't much of a salesman. So I saved up a little bit of money and went to Siebel Institute, brewing school based out of Chicago.
Sure.
After I graduated there with concise course in brewing science, it's like a 6-month online course. I got a job at North High Brewing Company in Columbus. Started out on the packaging line there. At the time, the lab manager was also working the can line and so they wanted to have the lab manager full-time in the lab, and so they wanted to hire someone to take over the packaging full-time. So I was hired to run the can line. Did that for 8 months or so, kind of worked my way into the brew house and in the cellar, and slowly worked my way up to the head brewer there for about 2 years. Worked there for a total of 4.5. Kind of got burnt out on the production side of things, just cranking out 1,000-case runs and stuff like that. It's not fun.
Yeah, it's factory work.
Yeah. So I wanted to move into something a little bit more intimate, more kind of customer-facing, taproom-focused brewery. Jumped on with Combustion Brewing Company in Columbus for a little over a year. Helped them open up their Clintonville location. So I was the brewer at their Clintonville spot. And then my fiance and I wanted to get closer to family and moved down to Cincinnati and jumped on with
Clintonville, is that the one that's in like the dairy building or whatever?
It's Preston's Burger Joint just opened up.
Okay.
Derive Brewing Company is right up the road.
Okay.
Yeah, it's probably 5 minutes off campus.
Okay. I'm trying to remember which, because we were at one of them this spring, and I'm trying to remember which one it is.
The Pickerington location is at
that's it. Yep.
So that's their first location. They've been there, not exactly sure, but a little while now. But they took over for Lineage. Lineage was looking to sell, so Combustion came in and took over that location.
Gotcha. I was blown away how great Combustion was.
They make very good beer.
We were coming off of another local stop up there that was just not good at all, and it's like, oh man, this Columbus strip's gonna be rough.
Yeah.
I walked in there and it was great.
Yeah, no, those guys are great. Great family. Really, really nice. The Jacksons. Learned a lot in the year and some change I was there. The Clintonville location, the brew house is not as vintage as Listermann, but still it's
got some character.
It's got some character to it. So it was that was a nice kind of precursor to coming down to Listermann.
Okay, so so you wanted to get into something, I guess Combustion would have been still kind of a smaller kind of customer facing kind of thing. What got you to kind of jump down here and join Listermann?
Well, I was applying to breweries down here. Like I mentioned, I'm from the area, so I'm familiar with Listermann and most of the breweries here in town. So I interviewed at a couple. I applied to a handful. And then Daniel, the last head brewer, was just really nice, and we had a really great conversation. And I came down here for a friend's birthday party, and Matthew was like, hey, if you find yourself in Cincinnati, stop by. We'll have a beer. So I came down, had a beer. I thought the beer was great. He was really nice, and took the position.
I love it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the beer for a second. Like, when the kind of the big rebrand of Listermann happened back in 2017, 2018, whatever that was, a big part of it was to kind of let the personality of the beer kind of be this be the brand itself. All of these beers have, artwork that covers the can, and every beer is the stories that make up what Listermann is. How do you roll with that, put your own spin on it, make sure that the old stuff kind of still exists, but still kind of, keep your eye on trends that are happening, because that's, again, part of what makes Listermann. Yeah. But not let the old stuff kind of fall to the wayside. How do you balance that out?
Well, there's a whole history of, labels that have been created, like you said, and recipes and stuff like that. And we're kind of trying to, we're always going to be making those beers, and we love the artwork on the cans, and we're trying to kind of incorporate more beers like this, more lagers, and into our portfolio. And we'll always be making the big barrel-aged stouts. We have a large inventory of barrel-aged beers to pull from, and we have tons of events and stuff like that, especially coming up.
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Yeah, that we want to pull beers from. And IPAs and barrel-aged pastry stouts have kind of been Listermann's thing for a long time, and we want to continue doing that. I think there is a bit of change in some consumer habits that I think Pilsners and lagers are perfect for that. And those are, as a brewer, probably most brewers are in this wheelhouse where a nice German Pilsner is all I want most of the time.
Right.
So I think kind of keeping one foot in the past with what we've made and staying up to date with current events. We're having an event. I know we're going to talk about events later, but we're having an event at the zoo where we're going to bring back Team Fiona, the hazy IPA.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'm answering your question honestly, but
like there's always like, and especially with a place that has like such a dedicated kind of fan base that's been around for a very long time, like those are the things that you start to hear. It's like you put a bunch of lagers on tap and you've got some grumpy, beer nerd that's sitting in your tap room. It's like, that's not what we want.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, it's not what you want, but I think it is what a lot of people want.
Yeah. I mean,
how do you keep them happy, but then also kind of keep growing? Like that's really tough. And like people, they don't make enough chickow anymore. There's not this or there's not that. And,
well, I think yesterday was the first time that we've ran out of draft chickow since I've worked here. And I would imagine it hardly ever runs out.
Right.
So, I mean, besides yesterday, we always have chickow on tap. We always
but
have
it also
nutcase. We
doesn't
always
run
have,
out because not everybody's drinking chickow.
Yeah, it's a 10%, double brown ale with hazelnut. Those beers move slower.
Right.
If you look at our sales numbers, the top 3, it's always going to be an IPA and it's always going to be a lighter option.
Right.
Those are, when it just comes to sales in the tap room, those are the beers that do it. And, if you look at our draft menu, I think we have 3 barrel-aged beers on draft right now, maybe. We have a handful of light options, a couple IPAs. We have a grapefruit Paloma Goza in the fermenter right now. So just having options for everybody, and those bigger beers are going to move a little slower. So
it's more balanced than I think it's ever been as far as the draft list goes. But
yeah.
I'm also, I think that's, obviously the loudest voices that you hear are the smallest group of people, but I think that's what kind of gets people like upset sometimes is they want, like, this used to be the place that I could go to and it was just IPAs and I love IPAs.
Yeah.
Or this place that I went to and it was all barrel aged beer and that's what I like, and that's what they like. There's a lot of people that have a different opinion about what Listermann is. And I'd be curious to hear from both of you guys what you think Listermann is. But, there's some people that are like, oh, no, it's that place that every single month there was a different IPA that was in cans and there were people and they were lined up and that's what Listermann is. And it's like, no. There's some people who are like, no, it was, these big barrel-aged beers and these big adjuncted stouts and these crazy big off-the-wall flavors. That's what Listermann is. And then there's other people like, no, you're missing the whole point. It was, it was the Oktoberfest festivals where it was out in the parking lot and everybody showed up and stood in mud and drank a bunch of Oktoberfest beer. That's Listermann. And like, you get these very different experiences and they're all kind of right.
Yeah.
But I think the tap list is more balanced than I think I've ever seen it for the, over the times that you guys have been owners here. And even kind of at the end of when Dan owned it too, he was starting to kind of, or not they were starting to balance things out a little bit, which I think is good. But, for you guys, if you had to try to tell somebody what Listermann is, what would you tell them?
Man, I don't know. I mean, it's a place that, you can come. You don't need to worry about kids running around everywhere. It's a little bit quieter. You can come down, just have a lot of different options on draft.
Right.
It's a place just to come hang out with friends. Just, drink great beer, and enjoy yourself.
Yeah, I think from a beer perspective, doesn't matter what's on draft, you're not going to be disappointed. And I think, to your point, having a little bit more diversity helps us to please not only our old fan base, but, it's all about generating new customers too, right? And introducing new people and getting a new following. And, just opening people's eyes to the fact that we have more than just IPAs or pastry stouts. I think the beer speaks for itself. But to Payne's point, I think this is a comfortable place where you can enjoy each other's company. It's not fussy in any way. There's a lot of history here. There's a lot of memories. And I think, it's a great place to gather with your friends and have, the city's best beer.
I like that. Let's talk about the food, because for a long time, the food was just kind of, I don't want to say an afterthought, but once every time a new kitchen would come in, maybe it got a little bit more of part of the focus of the space, but it was still somebody else in here kind of doing their thing. It was a different brand. It was, the hours were different. It was, you never really knew if food was open. You guys kind of changed that. Said we're gonna run our own kitchen.
Yeah.
How's that gone?
For the most part,
The food's been great every time I've been in here.
Right. We've not had a lot of complaints about the food, despite having, some turnover. Our first chef, he would still be here, but he had to leave, for some health reasons.
Right.
And he was very young, but very creative and, was in fine dining. So I liked the direction that he was taking the menu because we wanted it to be elevated bar food. Right. And I'm a weirdo, but I do not want a fryer in here. So finding...
That is not weird at all. I understand and respect that.
Okay. Sometimes, in recruiting chefs, they look at you like you're a unicorn. Like, what do you mean you don't have fryers? It's like, no, it's not the direction we want to go. And so Chef Robert also comes from a fine dining background, and he and I have been discussing menus. And I think just like the beer, it has to evolve with what you learn from customer feedback, because you always need to be refining and changing to meet those needs. And so he actually originated his first jobs were in Atlanta, across the street from a university.
Okay.
And so he's got some great ideas with regards to lunches and lunch specials and trying to meet the needs of students and their budgets, right?
Or lack of.
Or lack of, that's right.
Very tiny budgets.
So very tiny budgets, and quite frankly, the majority of those students aren't of drinking age either. So they've got to come in here and have a reason to come without, being able to enjoy the beer.
Right.
And so we're also looking at some, I would say, higher level dinner options then as well, because it's fun to have the bar snacks and, the appetizers and things like that. The charcuterie is something that, has gone well here, especially if one goes out,
People, yeah.
People are going to order. And so, but having, different offerings for different types of dining experiences. And so he prides himself. He doesn't, he shared this with me, and I thought it was, because I'm very customer service focused. I mean, we would not be here if it was not for our customers. But he takes the philosophy that it's hospitality. It's not customer service, because that's like the baseline bar, right? You want to be, above that and elevate yourself, that you're really creating an environment, like you're inviting them into your home, right? And you're the host, and you want them to have a fantastic experience.
Well, it kind of goes back to that same idea of, walking in somewhere and it's like, I don't know what I want right now. And then being able to have that conversation with somebody, like that's what separates, a craft brewery from Applebee's. It's
Absolutely.
like we want that extra little step, and we want that extra experience, and we want something that hopefully is elevated on all of those other fronts too, with flavor and all of that.
An important aspect of the flavor is his desire to incorporate Peyton's beers, right? So, he's done a lot of homework, I would say, on determining which beers are going to complement the meats.
That's
and
what
the
I
sauces.
do too. Homework all the time. That's what I tell my wife, and she's like, "No, you're just in the basement drinking again." I'm like, yeah, well.
Yeah, well, he has a good palate, and so I'm very excited to, we're going to be launching the kitchen on September 3rd fully.
Awesome.
We had some food to move through, some stuff that was on the current menu that, was in the freezer, that, some meats and things that we wanted to move through before. And then keeping it, the expectations, we want to do it right.
Sure.
And so I don't want to, you never want to overpromise and underdeliver.
Right.
So we want to make sure. And so far, his menu and the paninis and everything, we've gotten some really good feedback. So,
well, it's not that it's great to have like these little moments where you have to kind of reset and reconfigure things, but I think sometimes it gives you the ability to then force yourself to like, all right, let's look at what was working, what wasn't working. How do we change this? What do we not change? Like it gives you that, it forces you to do that. I think sometimes having moments like you had with the kitchen of some employee issues, and it forces you to do that. It forces you to take a step back.
Well, and it's a small kitchen, and we have no more than 2 people in there at any one time. We've had 3 people at most on, in staff. It's a 160 square foot kitchen, right? So, the bench strength isn't necessarily there. So, the chef is an integral part of that, and a very important part of the day-to-day operations, not just from a management perspective, but he's in there cooking, right?
I think for me too, like, and going back to kind of the brewing side, I think part of what has made Listermann so fascinating over the years is that every time you do have some kind of turnover, and there's been lots of turnover for the entire history of Listermann. Yep. It's, again, kind of going back to that homebrewer mentality. It's people that are here, they're figuring it out, they're learning, and then sometimes they go and they start their own thing, or they go somewhere else and they grow with what they want. And so there's been a lot of personalities that have come through this place, and you can still see like little pieces of those personalities, like still like people that were like years and years and years ago. Like you still see like, oh, I remember when that beer came out. That's definitely so-and-so's personality. Yeah. That beer is. And so like having a way to kind of incorporate that on the food side too, where there is changing and there's evolving and there's new ideas and new things, I think is a very Listermann thing. It
is. It truly is. It's the fabric of Listermann.
Finding how to do that is very difficult, though.
Well, it's just having patience and the patience and tenacity to be able to select the right people and to have the right butts in the seats, right? To make it happen. It's really important to me because everyone is the face of Listermann here, and it doesn't matter what your role is. And so you have to be on board. You have to be the right person, and you have to subscribe to what our mission is here. Okay.
Let's go kind of, I don't know how active you are on some of the Cincinnati beer Facebook groups and stuff. Mm-hmm. There was a comment this week somebody made, and there was a brewery up in Westchester that's kind of going through some changes. Ownership is looking to get out, and that either means somebody's going to buy the brewery or they're just going to close it. Mm-hmm. And somebody followed it up with a comment that the shakeup is happening. Listermann is next, was the comment.
Yeah, I read that.
How do you feel about that?
That was my last job, right? I've been in marketing for 30 years and managing social media.
I sometimes will tell either owners or owners with some of the Facebook groups or brewers with Untapped that you probably just shouldn't. You should have somebody else that looks at it and then feeds you the things that you need to see.
Oh, no, I like to read.
Okay.
So, that's the thing with social media is that everybody has an opinion.
Even if it's wrong.
You mentioned earlier, even if it's wrong. And, it's, when you mentioned earlier, it's 10% of the people are going to share something negative because that's what, it's content, right? And it drives emotion and activity, right? The people that are pleased or happy or, positivity is rare, on social media. So that's their opinion. And I don't put any weight into it at all. And, where they base that from, I don't know. And I don't really, it's not a concern of mine because we have a phenomenal staff and we're heading in, nothing but up here. So, it's a very positive movement here.
So you're not concerned that that's like a thought that enough people have for it to warrant.
not that I'm aware of, right? We're generally slow in the summers because of our locality here to the university.
That's what I love.
as soon as the students came in, last week, first year move-ins, we've seen a large uptick in our traffic, and it's very encouraging. And being the new owner, we're listening to staffers say, well, it's slower in the summer here, or wait till basketball season, it'll be shoulder to shoulder in here.
It's also interesting too because there are a lot of people that are that are older now that maybe went to school here or have some kind of relationship with Listermann that now have kids that are college age that they're sending off to school. They're like, you're right down the street from my spot. And so now the kids are like, oh, yeah, I got to go check this out. This is all my dad's talked about since I decided I was going to go to school here. Yeah. So like, it's fun to see kind of that generational thing kind of changing too. Whereas, for forever, like you didn't have any of that because it was young people that were in these breweries and the breweries were new. Mm-hmm. So you didn't have the ability to kind of pass that down to people.
That's right. 16 years, you get to see a lot of generations pass through here. And then, faculty and alums both.
Right.
It's heartwarming because this is their spot, right?
Yeah,
and this is where they come to meet their friends or see people that they might not have seen for a long time, and it's very cool to be a part of that. Let's
talk about some events. You mentioned 16 years. Mm-hmm. It is the 16th anniversary, although technically I think it was like June is when the brewing license. We won't nitpick anything.
I inherited the September date.
You guys are obviously you're throwing an anniversary party.
Yes.
Talk about what that looks like. Talk about kind of how you figure out to kind of use an anniversary to not only celebrating kind of the same thing we've been talking about, celebrate the past, but kind of celebrate where things are going from here.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the most important, obviously, part of the anniversary is the beer that we're going to be releasing. And
that's
so
I'll
let Peyton speak to that, because to me, that's what the event centers around is the beer release, right?
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna have a couple...
Unless Fiona is actually going to be here to celebrate with you guys. That's the only thing that could overshadow beer.
Yeah, so we're gonna have a couple fun releases. So we got barrel aged. So I guess I'll backtrack. We got a couple. There's a distillery in Kentucky, Augusta Distilling.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
We were lucky enough to get a couple of their Buckner barrels from their bourbon that won Bourbon of the Year, and so that's been sitting for just over a year, and it's tasting really well. So we pulled that out last week, and so we'll have that on draft and in bottles. No adjuncts. We didn't add anything to it. It tastes really, really good. So that's just going to be we'll have that on draft and in bottles, and then we'll have Brass Monkey, really popular hazy IPA for us. We'll have a fresh batch of that ready to go. We'll have a fresh batch of Hophead ready to go. We'll do a variant on Hophead. So we're going to do passion fruit, orange, and guava. And then we have American Hopic, which is our West Coast IPA pale ale. It's like 6.2, 6.3%.
Mm-hmm.
We have we have some fruit on that. We have mango and lychee on that. So yeah, we'll have a lot of fun options. We'll do, I know there's more.
So the old anniversary beers, the cellar beers, we're gonna have a release of those and make those available for sale.
Oh, cool!
During that day.
Yeah, so customers can get a flight of the past 2 years barrel aged anniversary beers, and then obviously this year's 16-year Buckner, and then also a barrel aged Chacal variant. We're gonna do Opera Cream.
Oh yeah.
So we're starting the spin on that with a bunch of cocoa nibs from Maverick Chocolate here in town. So yeah, we start with just the chocolate, see how that's tasting, and then we slowly build the other flavors kind of as we're tasting and bench topping to make sure we don't go overboard on anything.
If you need help tasting, let me know. I can give you my opinions.
Well, and Peyton, I think this may be the first year, I don't know, but it was important that we do have, like, you could get a flight of IPAs and something different if you're not into barrel aged beers, because some people aren't. So, we're going to have something for everyone.
I love it.
Yeah. And I love IPA. I mean, that's like my favorite recipe to make is an IPA. If you look in my fridge at home, 90% of the time it's either a West Coast IPA or a hazy IPA. So like I want to, continue making and a lot of the IPAs here, and I want to be able to have 3-4 IPAs on draft at all times.
Well, that's what's fun about the downside of IPA too, because it's very confusing sometimes, but it's the fun thing about IPA is that there's so many different personalities of IPA. You can walk in and you can have, 5 people sitting at the bar and they're all IPA fans, but they're all fans of very different beers.
Yeah.
And that's sometimes confusing for the consumer to understand, but IPA has grown into something that has a lot of different personalities to it.
Definitely.
And I like that. What day is the party on?
It will be September 7th.
Okay.
And we'll have a special menu as well for that day. A couple of dishes that will complement the Buckner Barrel, and live music from 12 to 3.
Not a ticketed event.
No, it's not a ticketed event. You know, I think that it's important to make those types of things accessible to everyone. And, you know, quite frankly, you know, none of these beers are inexpensive to make and or sell. So I believe in just making it accessible to everyone. And
I agree with that.
Everybody's welcome to join the party.
Wonderful. So. I love it. What else do you guys have kind of in the on the calendar, big events that you want to share?
Oh gosh, this week's really a busy week. We're going to have a coffee pop-up tomorrow, and I know you're airing this Monday, so that'll be in the past. However, this will be an inaugural one, and he plans with Red Tree Coffee. He plans on maybe doing a couple more pop-ups. So it will be from 8 to noon. Trying to get some Xavier students, you know, and have them experience not only his coffee but our space as well.
Is there a thought of incorporating that concept into what Listermann is at some point? Of, you know, we've seen some places that kind of, you know, during the early hours, it's a kind of a coffee shop vibe, and then as time goes on, the tap room kind of takes over. It's possible.
We're still in the very early stages. Right. So Kyle reached out to me, you know, earlier this week, and I thought it was I'm saying it selfishly because I need more places that I can sit and work in the mornings, and then right around noon, be like, you know what, I'm going to go have a beer. I need more of that. We can just transition from coffee into beer, right? Yeah. And then tomorrow, we're going to host one of 2 happy hours with the Xavier Psych students for a benefit for ALZ Walk. So they have an ALZ Walk and Alzheimer's Foundation. And so a portion of the proceeds will go towards their effort, their walk. And so I believe the next happy hour will be the 27th of September that we'll be hosting them again. So
awesome.
Excited about that.
What about, are you guys doing the Vets and Brews?
Yes, that was next on my list. Yes, that'll be November 9th, I believe. Yeah. So we'll do the Operation Flintlock releases.
Awesome.
And they're going to have 2 buses this year.
2 buses this year.
So there should be, I mean, this place will be
it's going to be packed.
Yeah.
It's going to be great. I love Matt Damaris. I love what he's doing with Vets and Brews. Hopefully he's actually there on the bus this year.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send him an angry text message and make sure he has his calendar cleared this year. I love it. I think that, again, there are so many people with their own like very personal connections to what this place is, and I hope that people just kind of understand that there's a lot of other moving parts going on. There's a lot of different other people that are in here that also have this completely different opinion than you do. And sometimes you probably shouldn't listen to people online.
I tell my husband that all the time. It's like, just because you read it on
it's so hard to do. Like, you know, I recognize that obviously with what I do, like it's a big part of what I do is recognizing the truth versus the not truth.
Yeah.
But still, sometimes I'll read something and I'll be like, man, that does open up a couple questions for me. And I'm like, I wonder if and you know, who knows? So sometimes there's some truth in some things that some people kind of then run in a different direction with. But let's talk about craft beer in general. I assume you guys have both been craft beer fans long enough to see lots of changes in this industry. What do you like about how things are changing right now, and maybe what do you not like about things that are changing right now in the industry? It's bigger picture stuff, not just, you know, here.
I mean, I really like that there does seem to be a shift towards lagers, which is nice. Just more drinkable, you know, sessionable beers.
Let me piggyback off that though. Does it weird you out that there's also this growth of light American lager in craft breweries, or are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that. Yeah, I think there's room. I mean, we have Beer Light on,
right?
And I think that's a great example of an American lager. Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. I mean, craft American lager is great. I'm all for it. You know, I think I could be wrong, but seltzers seem to be a little bit on the decline. At least craft seltzers do. It seems like most breweries that were dabbling in that are slowing a little bit.
Everybody's drinking High Noon now, I think is the thing.
Yeah, RTDs, I think, is kind of more of the direction that I think that those drinkers are moving.
I find it more concerning, though, that, like, yes, people are shifting towards the RTDs, but most of them don't understand that they're RTDs. They're drinking them because they probably taste a little bit better than a malt-based seltzer. And they have no idea why they're doing it. So there's still, like, isn't that knowledge of here's what I like and here's why I like it.
Yeah.
It's just, somebody handed me this and it tastes fine, so that's what I'm going to order from now on.
Yeah.
That concerns me. Like, that people still don't know what they like.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I could see both sides. Like, at times I kind of catch myself, like, if I put in a lot of time and effort to make a recipe and then, someone just drinks it and doesn't care about it, I guess, as much as I care about it.
Right.
But I think there's room but at the same time, I think that's, not to be sappy, but that's kind of beautiful. It's like you can spend all this time on something and so much money on something just for someone to come in that maybe has had a terrible day and they just sit there. They don't need to think
down the street to put it in a beer bong.
Yeah. Well, that's fine too. That's fine too. Just to make someone's day better, I guess, to be cheesy about it.
I mean, and there's definitely something to that. That is the point of beer, especially. It's a communal kind of drink. You're supposed to sit around and you're supposed to drink it.
I think, at least for me, like, what makes really good beer is a beer that, you can sit down and drink and pick out all the subtleties in it if you'd like, but you can also just sit there and drink it and enjoy it and not think about, each sip like, oh, what am I getting out of that? I enjoy doing that, but not everyone does, and that's totally fine with me.
It's with craft beer, though, it still is different in that I don't think there's anybody sitting around, like sitting at some kind of, a cookout or something, and somebody hands them a beer and they're drinking it that doesn't pay attention to at least what that beer is.
Yeah.
Like, at least somebody says, oh, what are you drinking? Oh, it's this Listermann beer. It's, they at least know that. They may not, be sitting there picking out flavors and stuff, but they're still connecting to something.
Yeah. And
versus,
I don't know, maybe the RTDs are just like so new that I don't know. Maybe it's just like there's still confusion there for some drinkers.
For me, it's like not all. It's a bunch of the people that were drinking light beer for a long time, then moved into seltzer, that are moving into RTDs, that still just they're not paying attention to what it is that they like about the things they're drinking, that they're just drinking whatever that thing is that somebody handed them to them that is light and crushable.
Yeah.
That concerns me.
I think White Claw could be part of the reason behind that, right? Because it was basically viral.
Yeah.
It wasn't necessarily because it was the best thing on the shelf to drink.
Right. You also, like, if you go into a bar and you sit there and you watch, and if somebody walks in and say they want a High Noon, whatever it is, and they say, oh, do you have High Noon Peach? And the bartender says, no, I don't. All I have is, I don't even know any other brands right now, Bob's RTDs, but I have a peach one of those. They're like, oh yeah, I'll take that. And they don't question it. And then they pick it up and they drink it and they're fine and they walk away and there's no other thought to it. And that's strange to me. Like, if you have a craft beer drinker and if they sit down like, hey, I really want, you have a, Hophead on tap. No, we don't have that. But we have, so-and-so's IPA. I think it's similar. Oh, can I try it? Like, that's there's still like this different kind of level to craft beer drinkers. I don't know.
Well, I don't know. I don't know
that it's bad, but it's this thing that I look at and it's like, man, it just doesn't.
I think if anything, that just means, the longevity of craft beer is, craft beer is not going anywhere.
Right.
And I think it's specifically for what you just mentioned. It's people care about it. It's not like, oh, I don't care. Just give me that one.
Yeah. I mean, we saw with some of the big beer brands that a lot of people were drinking, but they didn't really care about them. Yeah. How fast that can change if something stupid happens or, we won't go into that. What about you?
Oh, gosh. Well, within the last 10 years, I think, we talked earlier, it's just a different experience in brewery hopping. Used to be able to, just hit up a place and, they have maybe 3 beers on tap and you try to find something that you haven't had before or you visit a brewery that you haven't had before. I think the number of breweries has taken a little bit of that exploration aspect out of it. But then again, the beauty is that people do find their favorites and they do, patronize you because you have their
Right.
favorite. I think that the number of breweries, the industry itself has continued to grow, and it still is. But you're always going to have some consolidation within that because it's just the nature of the way,
Sure.
markets work. And so I think that
On the plus side, Shock Top is now a craft brand. I don't know how that worked, but it is.
Forgot about Shock Top.
yeah. So, I think when a lot of brewery owners, 10 years ago or longer, they were in it. They were home brewers, and they were like, yeah, I'm going to open a brewery, and, Anheuser-Busch is going to buy me. I'm going to become a millionaire. So that was never anything that, that wasn't why we got into this ever. And it was because we had a passion for the craft, being homebrewers ourselves. And we had a passion for the people, and the community was the biggest aspect for me because I worked in corporate for 30 years. I wanted to be a part of something that wasn't necessarily competitive between each other necessarily. I mean, we have a lot of awards on the wall, but that's different, right? It's showcasing talent and other aspects. But I think the community part of that, I don't want to see that go away. And I don't want to see, I want that community feel, doesn't matter whether you're in Cincinnati or Canton or Los Angeles or, that's what drew us all together. And I don't want to see that go away.
I agree with that 100%. I'm curious to hear from both of you guys. This is a question that we used to always ask on every episode that I kind of stopped asking for a long time, that I've been kind of obsessed with lately for lots of reasons. But what is your measure of success? Like, what is, and this could be, for the business, for you, could be for your brewing career itself. Like, what does success mean to you? Like, what is the, what is the why to all of this? Like, why, what can you look at and say, this was what I wanted to do. I'm successful. This is where I want to be.
I mean, selfishly, competitions are in there. It's definitely not the whole thing, but I mean,
let me kind of ask a really quick follow-up question on that. If you are winning a competition though, and it's a beer that maybe you didn't have, like, it's say Chickow wins something else. I don't know if you guys even enter Chickow into stuff anymore. It's, but would it feel the same as if it was something that was quote unquote your beer, something that you kind of came up with from the ground up?
Yeah. And recipes are very important, but it's your procedures and your processes back there. It's not necessarily, the recipe again is very important, but it's the processes you have back there, the way you're treating
Good,
the beer.
clean beer.
Yeah. So even if I didn't write the recipe, I'm still brewing all the beer back there. So it needs to taste good, and it needs to be the representation of what whoever wrote that recipe wanted it to be. And that can be hard. Beer is an agricultural product. Grains change every year. Hops change drastically every year. Maybe we're getting sidetracked here, but we don't count sales back there. So yeast pitches can be varied. So fermentation timelines and tastes and everything can change a little bit. So the recipe, again, is important, but it's our processes back there that are really doing anything and is really affecting the beer, like truly affecting the beer. Mm-hmm. So even if I didn't write the recipe, if the beer's good enough to win gold in something, I take pride in that.
Good.
Maybe there's an extra cherry on top if I wrote the recipe, but that's not that big of a deal to me.
But I think especially like the example of Chickow or something that was so unique, especially at the time. And there are some beers that the actual beer itself is something that like, I've never tasted something like that before. It's if you win for a German Pilsner or something, it's like, great. I mean, actually probably better, but
yeah.
It still is a German Pilsner. Like we know what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
If it's something that like it's a beer that like has some kind of really crazy spin to it, then like I think winning that award maybe would be a little different. That I came up with that spin, that idea. That's like I came up with that.
Yeah,
maybe that's where my mind is with it.
Yeah.
Versus if somebody comes up with a recipe again for German Pilsner, easy to use. Great, you didn't really come up with that recipe.
Yeah, and I guess to touch on just the ingredients, it's you could give this German Pilsner recipe to 10 different breweries.
Yeah.
They all brew it they buy the same ingredients that you used. All beers, all of them are going to be different.
Sure. Sure.
So I guess that's kind of where I'm at. So I guess back to the original question of success, competitions is in there, but also just, like we have a brewer back there, Dylan. This is his first brewing job. So I think teaching him is really rewarding. Getting people into the tap room that's success to me, I don't know. I guess it's not a very clear-cut answer, but it's...
Well, it shouldn't be, I don't think.
Yeah.
That's what is so fascinating to me, is it shouldn't be like just if we brew X amount of barrels in a year and like then that's success. That's not a good answer.
Yeah. I guess, creating a good environment, where people want to stay and want to work and want to drink.
I like that.
And eat, so it's, I guess in my mind, that's success for the brewery, brewer side.
I like it.
I guess.
Yeah, my answer was way less philosophical, but exactly what you said. Happy butts and seats, having the ability to carry Listermann on to the next decade and just drawing more people and new customers, new experiences for them. And then just, brewing the best beer in Cincinnati. Still, I don't think I would challenge anyone to say differently, because we've been to a lot of places, and I'm always that's the bar that I hold every other beer to. And I know it's not just because I own it, it's because that's what I felt before we owned it, right? My children were not allowed to come home unless they brought me Listermann beer, right? From college. And it's like, it's just having the opportunity, that's a success, to be able to serve people and have them be happy and come back.
I like it. I'm happy and I'm going to come back. So I think as of today, right now, you've started the day out on a success.
That's awesome.
Is there anything you guys want people to know about Listermann that you think that they don't know?
Oh, gosh.
I don't know.
I don't know. It's 16-year brewery. That's the thing, I think everybody thinks they know Listermann, but it's what they know Listermann.
16-year brewery, and then the homebrew store since 94, the manufacturing since 1991. Like there is such a history here. Like there's everybody's got their own story already, even if they've only been here once. They have a story.
Yeah. Well, he mentioned Dylan. And, Dylan has pretty much been in every role here at the brewery. He worked the homebrew store. He worked bartender.
I think that's great too.
And, now he's in the brewery. And for me, I think that's it's very rewarding to be able to mentor younger people into this community.
Even if somebody grows beyond what they are doing here, and they're like,
that's a success.
Got a job somewhere else. I'm going to be a head brewer somewhere, and like that's a good thing. I know I recognize that in some periods of a brewery's growth, that can be a little bit of a pinch, and it'd be tough, and it'd be like, oh man, we're losing somebody that we really needed. But bigger picture, it's a good thing. Homebrew store still is going strong. It is Cincinnati's last homebrew store.
Yes.
The homebrewing hobby needs that. I know there's a lot of people that were concerned when you guys were coming into here that was going to go away or something.
No, we still serve. We even serve local breweries here in a pinch.
I talk to a lot of them on a very regular basis that still love coming here. Just we just need a little bit of this, and here, this is where you get it.
And we got our we do a biannual wine juice sale, and so that's coming up. That's live now, so we'll be, a lot of our customers take part in that as well. So it's rewarding to be a part of carrying that hobby too, right? It's a unique hobby, I think.
A lot of those people that are homebrewing are the next generation of people that are going to be working in breweries, owning breweries, continuing this whole big thing into whatever this grows into, because Cincinnati is unique. I don't know if everybody realizes how crazy things are here in the city. Just pick another city that's a relative size, go there, spend a week in there, go around, drink. You'll see. You'll see how special Cincinnati is.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you making some time for me. And if you guys like this episode, share it with somebody. Just get onto whatever social media platform that you like the best. I don't care what it is. You can share it on Snapchat if that's possible. Do you guys use Snapchat at all?
No, really.
I don't understand this. Just share it with somebody because that's how all this keeps growing. If you really like what I do, you can go to thegnarlygnome.com/support and support that way. And you can actually give me real money. And my wife really, really likes that because when she pulls out her Find My Friends app and sees that I'm sitting in a brewery at 11 a.m. on a weekday and she's actually working, she gets grumpy. So do that. We'll be back next week. I don't know who we're talking to, but it's Cincy Brewcast. It's the voice of Cincy Craft.